Okay, here we are. We are live. Okay, so welcome everyone to Coach Connect, episode 6. I have two incredible guests today that I'm so honored and happy to have. So I'll start with Patty Bean. So Patty Bean's a licensed massage therapist and IFS informed coach. She holds PCC certification from ICF, is a national board certified health and wellness coach, and and master Wayfinder life coach, functional medicine certified health coach, and is an IFS informed coach. She worked as a course facilitator at the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy and serves as a coach mentor for her private coaching clients. In her work in coaching, Patty shares a love of mind-body wellness through teaching online Qigong, meditation, and yoga classes. And Cecilia Lanier is a national board certified health and wellness coach and a life coach and IFS informed coach trainee. She coaches in private practice and also serves as a coach for patients from various functional medicine and integrative clinics. She's a course facilitator and a faculty member in the coach training program at her alma mater, the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, FMCA. Cecilia earned her degree in educational leadership and administration at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, and as well as the National Board for Professional Teaching Standard Certification. She has 25 years of experience as an educator and found her deepest passion in coaching fellow teachers during the final years of her coaching career, teacher career. A personal transformation inspired her to use coaching to support others on their journey towards challenge and growth. She cites motivational interviewing as a primary influence in her work and a catalyst that led her becoming the lead author of the new book, Motivational Interviewing in Life and Health Coaching, a guide for effective practice, released this year, September 2nd, 2024. So Cecilia and Patty, welcome to the podcast. So honored to have you both on board.
Thank you, Diego.
Yeah. So, maybe first start off just a little bit about how both of you maybe found coaching or kind of your history, that what led you to get to this career and what you maybe love about it. And then we'll talk about what coaching actually is.
I can start with that. My coaching journey began when I went through a personal health challenge and so discovered that lifestyle matters and was able to reverse the health condition that I had been experiencing by using lifestyle medicine, functional medicine. So I realized that I wanted to learn more about that. I have a love of learning, and so here I am, multiple coach training programs later.
Lifelong learner like all of us. Thank you, Patty.
How we got into coaching, was that the question, Diego?
Yeah.
I was hung up on Patty's term, multiple trainings, and I just had to laugh. That's an understatement. There's multiple trainings in that statement there, in that life. So as you read in my bio, I became an instructional coach for teachers when I was a teacher. And that was about the last 8 years of my career. It was life-changing because now that I look back on it, I recognize that I was using the principles of motivational interviewing, or had been trained in that. And it was just my pocket. I fit very well there. But like Patty, I had a life-altering health issues that led to my early retirement. And even after 25 years, I wasn't ready to quit, but I needed to quit because of health reasons. And functional medicine was the piece of the puzzle that helped me turn it around, but I couldn't find anybody to help me, so I had my husband do it. He's a chiropractor, and encouraged him to be trained as a functional medicine practitioner. And I said, you do that and I'll coach people in the way that I wished I had been coached. So I sought out a place for training, and when I saw Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, the verbiage around the coaching was about how the client is the expert, the coach is not the expert. I felt like I found home because that's where that was the same foundational principles that I used in my teaching, instructional coaching. And I have had multiple trainings as well, but not near the level of Patty. But the motivational interviewing piece comes in with, like I said, it started way back in my, training to be a teacher, coach. But when I went to FNCA, one of the wonderful influences was this woman here, Patty Bean, my wonderful course facilitator. And she would often pick up Bill Miller's book and say, on page 67, it says, and I was like, yeah, there's something to that. And of course, in our own curriculum, this was a recommended book. I was all about it. I said, let's have a book study and delve deeply into that.
So wonderful that Patty talked to Celia. Now you both are co-authors of a book together at MI, right? Like what a full circle moment. And while there's our teachers of coaching and MI, I think one of the common questions we get asked and students get asked is like, what actually is coaching? Right? There's a lot of confusion around that term, a lot of lack of awareness. And I might say before, I definitely was one of those people who was unaware. When I signed up for my coaching program, I was like, oh, better way to learn to teach. And boy, was my eyes open that first day when I saw it live demo happen, right? So I'll give my ideas last, but I'd love to hear, how would you explain what coaching truly is to people who may not have heard about it or maybe uncertain about what its scope of practice really is?
Patty, go ahead.
Yeah, I can start on that one. So to me, I can better say what coaching is not. Clients come to me and think that as a coach, I'm going to behave in the way of an athletic coach, and there's nothing wrong with that in that particular field, but in health coaching or life coaching, we don't sit in that role of expert. We know that the client is the expert in their own life, and so we are helping draw out their wisdom that the client already has without perhaps realizing it, helping them through inquiry and evoking, we've helped them find out what the solution that they already possess for the issues that they are working on. So coaching is that conversation that helps draw out the client's wisdom.
She has a beautiful way of being succinct about that, and I'll try a stab at that as well. Not as succinct, but that's it really in a nutshell. I think I was going to start with what coaching is not, and I'll just give you the background experience. When I was asked to be a coach for teachers, I humbly say this, but it's accurate. I was a very, very effective teacher. And so when I became a coach for teachers, they thought, yeah, here comes Lanier. She's going to give us her expertise, right? Go. And I realized really quickly that didn't work. That just doesn't work. So I began to use the principles that Patty was describing. We do believe a certain thing, a certain way about human beings. Don't tell them what to do, but do believe they can find their way with guidance. That's essentially it. But I think I want to just add one other thing about what coaching, the typical understanding of coaching, I think, is that we have somebody who has a need. They have either a prescription or a goal. I want to exercise 3 times a week and I want you to help me get it done, right? And that's true. That includes that. And also, coaching is about much more than the problem that a person brings. Person brings a problem, but it's always the person at the core of that. And the problem is never in isolation. It's in context of a person's drive, their beliefs, their values. So coaching in the way that Patty and I are talking about coaching is a broader perspective and view, an addressing of the whole person and this one particular dilemma they have in context of their whole life.
Yeah, beautifully said. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have Patty's succinctness. So I'll say what it's not. I've also mentioned Patty, it's not, sports coaching. I also want to say it's not cheerleading either. People think a coach is just a cheerleader, like you can do whatever you want, right? And it's not that. And I say it's good to have in your life some cheerleaders, some friends and family. That's not what your coach is. It's a different role. And to your point of the holistic approach, I tell people, as a coach, we try to be expert in understanding behavior change in general, but as a client, we believe you're the expert in your own life. I think as a coach, we tend to learn a little bit about our clients, but it's not the goal. It's like a side effect. How could I possibly know someone only spending an hour a week with them for a few right? There's so much more breadth to them. And to your point, Cecilia, about the holistic approach, especially coming from a medical background where it's like diagnosis, a lab result, and this really narrowed in thing. I tell people, whole work life, home life, I'm like, it's the same cells in both situations.
Mm,
Of course, they affect each other.
mhm,
And I think personally, we often notice that correlation when it's negative. Oh, it's going hard at work, so my home life is suffering. And but just an example, it's all related. So
mhm.
the same way, we can also work on any one point of the system to help improve other points of the system as well. And to your point, people come in for a maybe transition, but oftentimes they really experience a transformation.
Mhm. I agree with you, and I would say 99% of the time it's a transformation. And you because we allow the person to begin to delve into their life, because you made a statement, Diego, that we don't understand a person's life. And I would say sometimes the person themselves doesn't fully understand and has not explored all the parts of their life that bring about behavior or bring about a mindset or bring about an issue to be addressed. So it's this sense of opening awareness, etc. So I won't get any further because that's another question probably.
Yeah.
I do. I
Well,
do have something to add to that, though. And I think also coaches are trained to listen deeply. So in a normal relationship, friend, family, coworker relationship, the people that we communicate with are listening with intent to reply many times. And a coach is trained to listen deeply, to listen and to reflect. And in that process, it allows the client to actually access that inner wisdom and process their own solutions and challenges. And that's the magic in coaching, is having that devoted individual who will listen to you.
that word devoted kind of gave me chills. I think it's that it's this true reverence and
Yes.
respect for the individual in front of you, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
There's like you have this reverence that they, if we give them enough time in the right circumstance, they can develop themselves. And I think some people think coaching is just getting smart goals back and forth. I go, this is not turning in a homework assignment.
Mhm.
This is study hall.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
This is where the work happens. And the whole, our lives are so busy. We're pulled in so many directions. I had clients say it's so nice to spend an hour and a half, two, however long it is, to actually delve a little deeper. And Patty, to your point about listening, people who know me know that I can talk a lot. I can be not, go on and on. But some of the biggest, I think, transformations I've seen happen in front of my clients have not necessarily been from a question I've asked, but because I was silent and then they came up with something else. And this is like briefly early on in my training with a client, and they said something. I was thinking like, what do I say back? What should I answer? And I was like, kind of like, it took me a second to figure something out. I took a breath in to say something, but luckily they beat me to it. And I would have never in a million years foreseen what they would have said.
Mhm.
And there's a power in the pause there. And then
Mhm.
maybe another story is one time a client asked a question. He goes, "Oh, good question, doc. Next question." I was
Hmm.
like, "If it's a good question, do you want to answer it?" He goes, "Oh, we can do that." I'm like, "Take all the time you'd want."
Mhm.
I was in person still at this point. I was in a room at a clock in the corner. And I swear to you, it was 90 seconds of silence because
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
just peaceful, calm.
Yeah.
And he was able to delve deeper. Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, we talked about also what coaching is not and this idea that they have the answer. One thing that struck me too early in my training was it's about cultivating their internal motivation.
Mhm.
People with the word motivation, I think people outside of coaching might think, oh, a motivational speaker. I'm going to go to talk and
Mhm.
going to be so excited about it that then now I'm going to make a change in my life. I think it's more inspiration or external motivation, true internal motivation. And so maybe segues to what motivational interviewing is. We mentioned that a few times earlier and
Mhm.
Bill Miller's book. So maybe a big question here, but how would you define, people who've never heard, what is motivational interviewing?
Okay, I've heard that question so much because people say, "Well, what's the name of the book?" And I said, "Motivational interviewing. You won't know anything about that." So I just try to find a way to make it clear. But if anybody is in the field of the medical field, the counseling field, they've heard of it. But I think of the title motivational interviewing, and the opposite of that is non-motivational interrogation, right? So I just went to the doctor, no offense, Dr.
Yeah,
Daniel,
please.
yesterday, and I was like, yeah, this is the opposite of motivational interviewing. So, motivational interviewing, I'm just going to try to put it succinctly. Forgive me, Bill Miller, if it's not clean, but he encourages us to just try to use our own words. It's a way of being with people to facilitate their growth and development toward change. It's and I wrote some things down to say in the larger, there's a short, I have a few definitions in here I put in there, but there's a short one and then there's a long one. The longer one is, this is an evolution of the strictly client-centered approach proposed by Carl Rogers,
Mm,
where the helper just sits passively, listens, and believes that the client will find their way.
mm,
So MI is an evolution of that, moving along this continuum, that this conversation is guided toward the goal that the client has set. And when I say goal, I don't mean the action step of buying tennis shoes and getting a workout routine. That may include that, but the goal is growth. It could be larger development and growth. So it's a goal or growth oriented conversation, moving the person toward what they say they want. And so we use a guiding style versus a very passive style. We don't lead, we don't follow. For the most part, we're guiding. But the core of motivational interviewing, and this is where I found to be absolutely essential to understand why it's the foundation of coaching, is it begins with the set of beliefs that we have and assumptions about people. So we believe people have already the motivation in there. Maybe dim, right? They may be demoralized, but it's there. It's not something that we can install in a person. So this interviewing has the connotation that we're pulling something from a client that's within them. We don't install this motivation, we call it forth. So our belief is that they have it. Our belief also is that they are worthy of our unconditional positive regard. Again, back to Rogers' work, that there's no need to judge somebody with where they are right now. We know that doesn't work and it's not motivating.
mm,
Um, and this idea about interviewing shifts a little bit of what we say. So instead of interrogating, when's the last time you went to exercise? How often do you exercise? Why don't you exercise? That's interrogating, right? The interview part includes the skills to honor the autonomous person in front of us, the person who can make their own decisions and must if a change is going to be sustained. So our beliefs are quite important and sort of dictate and influence what we say and how we say it. It's a set of skills, yes, MI is, but it begins with a set of beliefs that we embody. That's a long one, sorry.
I love it.
I think Patty's muted.
There you go.
There, thank you. I was getting a little feedback, so I was muting myself in between speaking. So to me, I will quote the book, and that is that motivational interviewing is a method and it is a way of being. It's a heart set and a mindset, and it's a way of interacting with the client who is seeking change. Period.
You're welcome.
Patty, I can learn so much from your succinctness. I mean,
Well,
speaking of learning,
mhm,
um, yeah, and it's this. There's so many things said there. Cecilia was saying that the client has that motivation internally, right? I heard this analogy like the way Michelangelo said, "How'd you create the David?" Well, he was already in the marble. It just kind of took out the stuff that wasn't there, right? And that we all have some sort of values that motivate us. What they are could be radically different, but values do create motivation. So this reminded me of I can share a quick story. I was in a rollerblading group here one day, like last year, and we were skating down a bridge, and we saw another group go across us. And I looked at my friend who was skating. I was like, "Hey, let's speed up to catch up and join them." And she said, "Let's speed up to leave them in the dust." Now, we both skated faster and better, and we caught up with them. We both have motivations, but different things that motivate us. That unique approach. And to see your point about medicine and how different it is, I think the might be a different number now, but the studies like how often someone talks before the doctor interrupts them. I think it used to be like 12 or 13 seconds. It's gone to like 9 or something, right? That's not interrogation. It is that the client, we're there for them with an unconditional positive regard, but it has evolved to not just being passive. Some students say, well, I'm just here. You're not a fly on the wall. The way a guide or Sherpa helps someone get to where they want to go, they decide where they want to go. We make sure they have the tools and equipment, kind of doing it in a way that's maybe most effective, but ultimately they decide the journey and the route as well. And maybe speaking of evolution, it's going to be, you guys have now part of this evolution, right? So motivation issuing has a history, and now we're talking about motivational interviewing and health coaching, the book that you both wrote. So I'm curious, maybe first start off, what motivated or what inspired maybe both of you to say maybe we should have a MI specifically related to coaching, and then we can talk about what those differences are in different fields, how it shows up.
So, as a course facilitator, I like to have Dr. Miller's book beside me when I was in our live training sessions. And I got to the point where I could quote quite a bit of it verbatim because I felt like it was so important. And it was a book that coaches didn't always translate from psychotherapy, which is what it was written for, into the world of coaching. So I felt like that was the reason that this book was necessary.
yeah, good point. As I was reading the book, I felt like, wow, this is great, but I wish I knew what it sounded like in coaching. So the Bill visited our school and just kind of made the statement that there's a series of motivational interviewing books in different fields, and one in healthcare, diabetes care, social work, corrections, etc. And he said someone needs to write a book in coaching, and I just felt in my inner spirit that that was me. Although I fought it, it was initially like, no, I don't really want to. Um, but Stacy Arnold, who's the third co-author, just kind of insisted, pushed it, this idea. And as I had discussions with Patty before that I felt like my view was that I don't know if anybody was seeing what I saw, but I love to work in a team, and I love people around me to talk about things, and I used her definitely to talk about things with. And one of the things we talked about often was, hey, do you notice that motivational interviewing is kind of the foundation for coaching? Has anybody else noticed that? It's like the same thing if you were to look at it. And she was like, yeah, it's very, very similar. I was like, yes, it's the same thing. And then when I saw the competencies and began to study those, I realized, oh, it is directly from MI. So that was sort of the impetus for me saying and agreeing I could probably do this. And then we got the contract to go ahead and write it. So the proposed thesis, or if you would, the argument for the book is motivational interviewing is not an addendum, it's not an accessory, it's not an optional tool for coaching. It is, it serves as the foundational piece for coaching,
Mm.
life and health coaching.
Yeah. And something both of you mentioned earlier, that motivation interviewing goes beyond the skill set. Sometimes I've seen small mini MI series, and people say, "Oh, darn cats and oars and these acronyms," right? Some of the skills we use in coaching, but really, it's just an example of the mindset of how you approach or how you are with someone, right? To be there. So, what would you both say are some of the you said there's a need for this evolution, am I in coaching? What are some of the unique maybe differences or particular things that are more highlighted in motivation interviewing for life and health and wellness coaching compared to for psychotherapy or healthcare?
We're beginning to really flesh out the answer to that question. And I
Mm,
think the answer is not in so much of what we do, but who we serve. So let me explain a little bit. Well, it is in what we do, but we use the same tools. Let me back up and say when Bill Miller developed motivational interviewing, and I'm drawing this continuum, he took, I think, counseling and psychotherapy, those services, it is a treatment model, right? It was a protocol treatment, solution oriented model. And with the mentorship of Carl Rogers, with motivational interviewing, moved it more toward a middle of this continuum, of this guiding approach, of engaging the client, involving the client in the solution instead of just, giving a protocol and a treatment.
mm,
Well, coaching 30 years ago, about the same time, shifted from business coaching of giving somebody, something to do when they realized, hey, wait a minute, we're talking about personal issues, also shifted toward the whole person, the development of the person, and the person beyond a treatment. So, and I'm drawing this continuum. So if you're familiar with Travis's illness and wellness continuum, where on the left side you're looking at, progression toward disease, right? And so a therapist, counselor are looking to take a person from that end of the continuum toward the neutral point in the middle, the absence of disease and disorder. That's treatment. You can use motivational interviewing in that, and it's done all the time.
mm,
Coaches take the person from the neutral point, and we don't focus on the treatment, the diagnosis even of a person's disorder, but we take a person toward fulfillment of their growth and development toward the right end of that spectrum. So we're looking at different clientele, first of all. And then I'm going to stop and let Patty add to that because we're still developing this, but I think the core is MI skills are used with a different view, a view toward growth and development. But this does not mean we don't acknowledge, use, and honor a person's history
mm.
of emotions, okay, of even lowercase trauma, lowercase t trauma. So that's one of the differences. Patty?
We do a really nice job on page 37 of discussing this. When we're talking about the MI spirit, the motivational interviewing spirit, it's the foundation. So it's the beliefs that we hold about our client, about the coaching relationship, and it's it's how it, we already talked about it being a way of being, but it drives every action that we take as a coach when we have this heart set mindset foundational belief that the client is the expert in their own life, and we hold them with unconditional positive regard,
Mhm.
that's the foundation
Mhm.
piece.
And that's a component of MI. In other words, the MI spirit, we've renamed it CAPE, just put it in a different order, okay, just so we can remember. It's the same spirit. Okay, so there's so many similarities when someone says, how is coaching with MI different than using MI in counseling? We have to look for the differences because she just illustrated there is a great bit of similarity.
One other thing, I'm not there to fix the client. As a therapist, it would be my responsibility, or a medical doctor, it would be my responsibility to help them heal
Right.
or to fix them. And
Yeah.
that's not my work as a coach.
Mhm.
So that's a key difference.
Yeah. And yes, and that's
Yeah.
what I was talking about, this continuum. If you get to neutral, and that's why we want to honor all the service people who are therapists, counselors, and the work that they do. It's profoundly important, profoundly important. And we know that we don't have the education, the licensure that they have to treat, diagnose these disorders, right? So we know our lane, and we also know that people are people, and that to change, there are certain things that have to happen. And if you use MI in counseling and you use MI in coaching, you use the spirit, the mind, and the heart set, and the same skills to the end of growth for the, wherever you are on the continuum.
Yeah. Patty, as you were speaking, and Cecilia too, as you were speaking, I remember it got a flashback to when I was first training as a student. And I had just done a triad, and we're walking in the hallway back from like we had different breakout rooms. We're walking back because it's in person, right? And my mentor just, we're talking. She said, Diego, stop trying to solve people's problems. That's not your job anymore.
Mm.
Right? It's not, because I first thought, if I can learn all of medicine, healthcare, and teach and understand the reasons why, right? But it's not your role anymore. And even go further than that, as both of you are kind of alluding to, you don't have to have a problem to improve.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. You can have a diagnosis and work on your diabetes or cholesterol, but you don't have to, right? You mentioned the continuum. I think before medicine is, well, get them out of the hospital. Well, life is much more than just not being in the hospital, right? And there are professionals, doctors, therapists who do deal with how to go from dysfunction to maybe neutrality, but then he can go from neutrality to optimization, fulfillment, right? I tell people who are asking about coaching, I say, the nice thing about coaching is that you don't have to have panic attacks to work on stress management.
Mm.
You don't have to have major depression currently to work on your resiliency. My personal story, when I was in a student, as people who are coaches know, you have to be a student to learn. You have to be a client to learn. You have to experience both sides of the equation, because you can't learn this just online, which we'll talk about in a second here. Because on paper, reflect back. When you experience it, like, I understand how impactful it is. And so I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to work on my exercise. Frankly, I've always been a tall, lanky guy. Keep what I want. But I was like, I know it's not necessarily the healthiest for me. And after med school or residency, I didn't do much physical activity. So I decided I'm going to work on physical activity. I was like, I can write a book about how it's good for your cardiovascular system, blah, blah, blah. The knowledge is not the gap in well-being and health. It's much to do it, right? And so you don't have to have dysfunction in order to improve, and you can too. That's really a trans-diagnostic model. We can work with anyone, with or without conditions. Right? There's, I think, one of the differences there that really coaching can help bridge gaps, and also prevent needing some the more advanced or, harder to do modalities as well.
That's a new term for me. Would you repeat it?
See all the
Trans?
wheels turning.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, trans diagnostics.
Yeah.
Let me define that. Thank you,
Yeah.
Cecilia. Right. So speaking of diagnosis, right? There's a phrase: when you're hammer, it's all a nail. And by definition, because of not just by the studying, but also in the way billing works. To be frank with you, when you're a therapist, in order to see a client, you have to have a diagnosis, or else you're not going to get reimbursed. And if you can't find one, it's adjustment disorder NOS, not otherwise specified. Right? In medicine too, people would come into the clinic for a question or concern, and it was like, we're telling them, oh, actually, it's normal. For example, in pediatrics, my kid has, sorry to say this, loose stools. I call it's normal for babies, actually. And then we'd be in the back room, be like, well, what do we bill? Like, we have to have anxiety or a parent or something. You have to have, right? So by definition, when you're hammer, a little bit's all a nail. You're kind of focused on that. Let's coaching doesn't, and what it can borrow from. Actually, one of my coaches that I've had in the past, he was a therapist, and the way he explained it, he said, coaching allows me to use the science of therapy, nothing limited by a diagnosis. So it's trans-diagnostic.
Yeah.
Stress management techniques work for people with anxiety, people who don't have anxiety. It transcends diagnoses, and it works across diagnoses. It's a trans-diagnostic model. Thank you for calling me out, Cecilia. I should have defined that before.
No, that's great, because I'm like, too bad I didn't talk to him before I wrote that chapter, because that says it beautifully. But there is a place, I was just highlighting it today to talk to Suzanne about what's different in this book. And I laid out what are the differences between coaching and other services, like mentoring. It's here in the back of the book somewhere, but there's a wonderful chart that kind of lays out some of the differences. And I think people come to us, and I know I see it in the students. I have a class this year with 2 physicians, a nurse practitioner, a lawyer. I mean, high professionals, a lot of specialists. And they have asked the question, and counselor, what is the difference between coaching and what I do? Right. And so I have sort of addressed some of that in the book. There's a chart that kind of lays some of that out. I wish I had your transdiagnostic term. That would have been very helpful.
And for volume 2, we'll write one book together, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I can add one more thing too, as you were mentioning the Travis continuum too, I think when I was learning in medicine, I was like, okay, someone comes in with, you mentioned, let's choose diabetes, a common disorder, right? They say, well, you got to tell them that it's bad for your eyes, you're gonna lose your vision, your kidneys are gonna stop working, your feet, And I think coaching also is not just what you're running away from, it's what you're working towards.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I don't want to have diabetes. It's that I want to have a life full of freedom, where I can enjoy longevity and see my grandkids play, not worry about something.
Yeah.
Very different approach.
Yeah, which is why, and all of it's, I gave a very detailed explanation of what MI is, but to write the words in the book, trust me, as you know, in a book like this, you have to be extremely concise. And so that concise thing that Patty read comes from carefully choosing words to describe what we do. And what we do starts with, it's a way of being with people. It has to start there. It has to start with the belief. So our students want to know, give me the skills, just teach me the darn oars, a darn cat or something. Huh? And let's get to it. And I'm like, yeah, hold on a second. Put your cape on first. Because if you don't have this mind and heart set, the way of being with people, those don't mean anything.
Yeah, it's a mindset, not a skill set. The skill set honors the mind, is examples of how the mindset comes across, not the other way around, right? And it does take a real, when I'm working with students too, they're like, "Oh, it's so hard." I'm like, "Yeah, you're changing the way you think about people. You're changing the way you approach people. This is not how you normally be with people the first few decades of your life. It's a hard thing to change. So your clients are also going through change too. It's okay." And speaking of MI and education, I believe it's such a hard challenge to do what both you've done, to describe something that's so three-dimensional, maybe four-dimensional, so nuanced, and put it into, I couldn't do it, put into concise words or put it into a manual. And yet, one thing I want to bring up too, I remember in all my medical training, postgraduate, I had 7 years of postgraduate medical training, 4 medical through residency. I had one lecture on motivational interviewing, one 45-minute PowerPoint in a room with 130 other students. And luckily I could have missed that day, right? And like, I just happen to remember it because later on I was like, oh, this reminds me of that thing I learned that one time, sandwiched between pharmacology and pathophysiology or something like that, right? And maybe I want to talk about how the difficulty, or maybe not difficulty, it's just a word, how you have to learn MI, right? That you guys both wrote an amazing book, but there's much more. You can't just read about MI. Can you both maybe allude to, I think you guys know where I'm going with this. Can you shine some light on how you actually going to incorporate these skills and learn this mindset?
Um, as
Oh,
a
Patty, I think you're muted.
Patty's muted, but I want her to speak beyond what I'm going to say. But as a teacher, you can take the teacher out of the classroom, but you can't take the teacher out of me. You know what I mean? It's in there. It's in there. And I know when Bill says this, I'm like, you're preaching to the choir, Bill. You can learn about MI in this book. And you can learn about MI in even a 45-minute lecture. But to actually be able to practice it requires much more. And as a teacher, I know you see the leaning of my writing in here is teacher. I tried not to. It was like, well, why not? It is a sort of a textbook. So I added the 15th, if that is 15th chapter, the 15th chapter, for the purpose that if you wanted to learn MI, sit down here, go through these exercises, and still yet that's incomplete. Okay, because it requires actual observable feedback and practice. And so that's where I want Patty to elaborate.
What I was saying when I was muted was one word: practice. You have to do it. You have to, even though it's a set of skills, but it's a method, but you have to use the skills and use the methods and come from that place of the way of being. And then it takes feedback, whether that's, if you have, perhaps as a coach, you could have a practice client who is willing to be recorded. You can evaluate your motivational interviewing skills from that recording, or you could sign up for a motivational interviewing training course like we are going to be teaching. And we would be giving you that feedback on the effectiveness of your skills, what you're doing well, and what you can do to get even better. And the purpose for that is to serve the client.
Yeah, it's people sometimes say when I'm training, they're like, oh, sorry, I was wrong. I go, listen, when you're here to serve, there's no ego. It's not being right or wrong. With the reflection, here's a common example. I'll say reflection, oh, your family's important to you. Someone say, yeah, they really are, Diego. That's why I'm doing this. I want to lose weight. I want to be active with my 5-year-old, see them get married, and be the cool grandpa. Cool. I've also said, your family's important to you. And someone goes, yeah, they are, but I spent the last 4 years changing diapers. I want to do this for me. Is a reflection right or not? And even the feedback, sometimes they get upgrade, I say other considerations. Things aren't always right or wrong, but it's a creative process. It's a performance. I don't mean it's not real, but it just happens in that hour, half hour, however long it is. It's like playing music. You can read music theory all day long, but if you don't pick up the instrument,
Yeah,
you never learn how to play. Right? Another thing I heard in Spanish is you can't learn to drive online. Right? And so I wonder if you guys, I've learned just today earlier that you guys have a new course actually to help people out with that. I wonder if you could delve into that, and if you have opportunity, I mean, frankly, I think I'm gonna sign up for this. Please, if you could tell us what the next step. So you've taken the program, you've read the book. How can people really now learn to implement these skills with your guidance?
Absolutely. So Cecilia and I are working to create a 7-week course that has a video component, so a video lecture, and then there's a live training component where we talk about what's in the book. We talk about what's in the webinars. We talk about how to apply the learning. So we have those conversations, and then we use the observation and actually coach in that practice session in breakouts to be able to offer that feedback for growth. So and the one other thing that's important about that course is it's already been approved to provide 18 continuing ed units from the NBHWC. And our intention is to, once we have that under our belt, then we will apply for ICF credentialing as well.
Yeah. So the cycle of learning, we're building a content base with these webinars that I created that are content heavy. Okay. But if you were to just look at the webinars, you'd still be in the same position that you started, and that is you haven't practiced, right? So we're hands-on, review the content. Hopefully Patty and I will demonstrate some of the skills, have a lot of discussion, because there's a lot of questions that people have when they first hear this, or when they want to, what if. And then we're going to, like she said, allow time for actually practicing it with feedback, so that it's more than a knowledge. It's the whole learning cycle where you get the feedback live.
I'm trying. Oh, so again, and to everyone listening, I learned about this maybe 15 minutes before our call. I'm so excited about this because one thing I love teaching is that kind of keeps me honest, but the recordings, right? Like I'm actually doing a PSA later on today. Whenever you record yourself, you really can see, because what your assumption of the session is not necessarily what happened, right? Usually when I'm teaching someone, when the student's like, oh, so great, they often were leading, giving advice, right? But the client was having a difficult time, ambivalent. They're like, oh, it was a really tough session, but they actually were doing more appropriate coaching. And this is something you can learn different examples. The more, when I was in medicine, I would tell medical students, go with as many attendings into the room as possible. See the different styles. You're going to pick up what you like, what you don't like, different ideas to inspire you. You're going to become this own artist. There's an art to the science here. You have to be your authentic self, because people pick up authenticity. But you can learn to use your authentic through that MI lens, right? And I actually working with the boards this year with the competency update committee. Well, so people don't know, that's kind of there's a blueprint, which is basically what the exam is based off of, plus what the board approved programs are based off of. And one of the statisticians from the NBME, right now his name escapes me, I'll find it out later. He's a PhD in statistics and test exam writing. And he goes, I can sit for all the exam writings for cardiology, nephrology. He goes, you guys, or you people, have the most difficult job, because it's not hemoglobin A1C 5.6 to 6.5, right? It's how do you translate this skill set, this art, into something you can question. And to their point, and so this is something I've said before, it's super important to have an examination, have standardization, right? It's why we now have a health savings account, maybe insurance billing. And I also want to say something that he pointed out. This exam is testing your knowledge. It's not testing your actual skill in practice. A multiple choice can't see you do the skill of asking the right question in real time. It just says, do you understand what a reflection is? Now, it's important to have the knowledge, like the music theory, know the scales. That's not your performance of it. It's not when you're playing a song. And I think a lot of people for CE credits, they learn more knowledge. But I sometimes wonder, is your actual application in the skills, in the mindset change, and the practical skills that happen? So to anyone who's listening, first of all, pick up the book. What a wealth of knowledge there. And do like I'm going to do and go to this course, because that's where the skill set happens, right? We're all dedicated as part of code of ethics to be a lifelong learner, so we can best serve those around us. And we're lucky to have people like Cecilia and Patty, who not only led the way, have helped pave the road. I mean, Patty paid for Cecilia, you guys paid it for me, but now continue to move it forward, right? And say, let's continue our learning and learn from each other.
Mhm.
We all have these conversations and we all have different perspectives, different things we put into these models. And let's be curious for learning and for growth. I want to say I could talk to you. Well, we have talked for hours before, and we will afterwards. But as we kind of almost maybe start wrapping up here, and by the way, if I'm saying correctly, it's www.coachwithmi.com. That's right. Is that correct? The name of the site for your C credits? Coaching with MI.
coachingwithmi.com.
And we'll have that written down from coachingwithmi.com. And your book can be found, if you can both say where people can find your book as well, where can people find this amazing new addition to the knowledge base?
I would like to say something about the book. You can find it here on my desk. You can find it on.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kathy. And, you find it on Amazon. But listen, go to Guilford because you can get a discount with Guilford. And if you sign up as their customer, membership, you get free shipping and you get a 15% discount. And also, here's the bonus. I created 20 handouts online that you get when you buy this book from Guilford, right? You just click it and download these. And to me, the teacher in me is like, yeah, we got to have something in our hand. So we're suggesting that coaches use some of these things, and we're actually putting some forms in the hand that they could use with clients and use in their learning journey as well. So, yeah.
What a generous act, Cecilia. And I'll say I bought mine on Kindle. I'll be frank with you, I'm gonna buy it now because I want to hear that. I missed the paper version. So I'm gonna buy the one on Guilford and get the extra 20 handouts. So thank you for informing me of that. So that's a wonderful thing. So thank you both, Cecilia and Patty, so much again for the please, Cecilia.
Sorry, I should also honor Stacy Arnold, who's our
Yes.
third author, and there is a online chapter that is loaded with the research on coaching with MI. And you'd be shocked at how much is out there. Now, there's research also with just how effective MI is, but if you really want to know if this works, take a deep dive into that online resource there with the research to date. It's lots of it.
Beautiful, especially for people who aren't aware that this is, again, I would say this is based in science. This is, and to people who work with clients, you can be fully transparent with your clients of what you're doing. I tell my clients what a reflection is.
Yeah.
My analogy here is when you learn how insulin works, it doesn't stop lowering your blood sugar.
Right.
When you learn how oxygen works, you don't start suffocating. Think about everyone who's a coach. Most training programs require you to be a client. You and your classmate who coach each other and got really effective sessions both have the exact same, you know what they're doing. There's science this is based off of, and there's an art to applying the science.
Yeah.
Right, but you can be fully transparent with your clients, and I think also really helps that partnership. Let's demystify this. There is science behind it. Be fully transparent and ask the client, what do you think is effective for you? What parts do you want to focus on today? So Cecilia and Patty, again, I'm looking forward to our next conversation, whether on or offline. I've been really honored and blessed to have talked to both of you and learned from both of you, not only today, but our past talks and future. Thank you both so much, truly, for being here on our podcast. And actually, I'm like you, Cecilia, I have one more thing to say. One thing we're trying to do viably also is how can people who use the platform continue their professional development? So we're looking at how we can use recordings of sessions, HIPAA compliant, train this AI agent with principles of motivation, principles that you guys are writing in your book. But beyond it being a one-way street, I want it to be a two-way street, right? Because when you're working with a student, I often ask, what are the things that you're working on? Someone working on having more metaphors. I, as Cecilia and I've said, I'm more pausing in my coaching sessions. Most people know me. I have a little, it won't show up on camera here, but I have a little Post-it. Maybe it will show up. I'm being really honest.
Pause. Okay.
It's a picture of my dog's foot, and I put pause when I coach.
I have the weight. Why am I talking?
Why am I talking? The weight. Right. And so not only is this because coaching is bi-directional, I think professional development should also be bi-directional. Not just here's what you do. That's why the personal mentorship from both of you and these in the coaching with MI is so helpful. And how can we use in between AI and technology to help you self-assess, but you say, hey, how many open versus closed-ended questions did I have?
Mhm.
Or one thing I've been shocked, it'll show you how much each person is talking. I'm like, oops, 50-50. Maybe I
Mhm.
was talking a little too much that session.
Mhm.
Right? So anyone listening, please give us ideas because we all want to help improve professional standings of coaching. The better we can serve others. First of all, the better world we'll have, better individuals, better communities, better world, but also more awareness of this to people who say, wow, coaching is truly effective. It truly is a gift to be coached and to be in that partnership. So thank you both again. Any last minute things before we
I
hop off? I keep
do.
on saying one last minute thing, but yes, Patty.
I do. That brought up a really important point, and that is, as coaches, just as in any other profession, but especially in coaching, we need to do our own work. So we need to be getting coached. We need to have a coach mentor, and that's incredibly important if we are going to be able to serve most effectively. So we need to do our own work in order to serve the clients that are in front of us.
There's a reason why it's in our code of ethics. It has to be, we practice what we preach. We're always developing, we're always learning. It's not something we did a few years ago in training. It's something we're continuing to evolve. Evolution is continual. It's a beautiful part about it. We're never done. So Cecilia, even though this will be done with a podcast, the evolution doesn't stop. Patty and Cecilia, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being our guest today. Real honor, a real privilege, truly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diego.
Take care. Stop recording. Did I do the right buttons? Okay. End stream.